Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and score them on how well the store page sells it. Since I have no formal journalistic credentials, I feel I am uniquely qualified to pass judgment on the hard work and dedication of other people. Yes, that is how serious I take myself. Now, today is going to be the last review of the year, as well as the last review as part of the Game of the Year special series that I started at the beginning of this month in December 2025. And because it is the last day of the month as well, maybe you're watching this a week into 2026. We don't know. Anyway, Baldur's Gate ended up winning the Game of the Year awards for Best Community Support. Despite coming out in August of 2023, it is getting this award in 2025, which, to be fair, this kind of award does sound like the kind of thing that would be warranted for something that is based on, like the title it says, community support with the modding community, the overall player and artist community. And considering that the Baldur's Gate game series comes from the roots of Dungeons and Dragons, that's really no surprise that it is the game that warrants that kind of love and passion from its community, not even getting into the fame and notoriety that the game itself has harbored since its release. Now, I have heard the accolades and everything into Baldur's Gate. I've heard of people, I've seen some of the memes where people romancing other the characters and the NPCs and everything. And it's like, okay, cool. There's a lot of stuff to it. Being a Dungeons and Dragons game, it is going to be rich with lore, quests, gear, and character customization through races, classes, all kinds of different things that you can choose to be and play as, and that you can choose to build into your party with the other characters. A lot of cool things, which offers a lot to players. Now, we're going to be looking into the description of this to see how well the store page sells it, because what I just talked about, is basically what I expect from a Dungeons and Dragons coded thing. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 comes from Larian Studios, but from what I understand, the other two Baldur's Gate games, as well as I think what Neverwinter Nights and Icewind Dale, came from another studio. So this is a studio that seems to have gotten the rights to the Baldur's Gate namesake for this. And the Larian Studios also has other RPGs with the Divinity series under their belt. Now, I did take a very cursory look at the Divinity games, which appear to be older epic fantasy RPGs, especially the first couple of ones, along the vein of like maybe Diablo 2 as far as its time frame, not necessarily its mechanics or theming or inspiration. But those games, the earlier games from Larian Studios, are also on a massive sale, from what I can tell. You can get a Divinity trilogy for like $3, I think. In fact, after I do this review, I might actually pick that up just to try those games out, because even though I'm not a longtime fan of Larian Studios, $3 for a handful of classics is absolutely the kind of thing I can justify on my budget. Unfortunately, for this review, though, we're looking at Baldur's Gate 3, not the Divinity games, which, we're looking at a $45 game on sale right now, but $60 full price. But then again, we're also talking about a Dungeons and Dragons game that's going to have a lot of meat to it. At least that is what we hope. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and look into the store description here. Baldur's Gate 3, about Baldur's Gate 3. Gather your party and return to the Forgotten Realms in a tale of fellowship and betrayal, sacrifice and survival, and the lure of absolute power. Now, the word absolute does come into play here a little bit in the trailers, where they say that uh, something about the absolute. They're referring to the absolute as a noun, as in a proper noun. So the big bad evil guy, which does get showcased in the trailers, unfortunately, I think that might be a little bit of a negative thing to show in the trailers, is to show your final villain, or at least what is presumably the final villain. There's probably some kind of thing going on where there's some other supernatural doohickey going on, because it's D&D. Mysterious abilities are awakening inside of you, drawn from a mind flayer parasite planted in your brain. Hold the fucking phone. Drawn from a mind flayer parasite planted in your brain. Holy balls. Resist and turn darkness against itself, or embrace corruption and become ultimate evil. Okay, honestly, right there, that second sentence there, I wasn't expecting that. I honestly thought, maybe epic fantasy thing. I didn't expect you to have the option to just straight up become the villain. From the creators of Divinity Original Sin 2 comes a next generation RPG set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Gather your party, choose from 12 classes and 11 races from the D&D player's handbook and create your own identity, or play as an origin hero with a handcrafted background, or tangle with your inner corruption as the Dark Urge, a fully customizable origin hero with its own unique mechanics and story. Whoever you choose to be, adventure, loot, battle, and romance your way across the Forgotten Realms and beyond. Gather your party, take the adventure online as a party of up to four. Oh, on top of that, it has online play with up to four players, according to this. An expansive original story. Abducted, infected, lost. You are turning into a monster, but as the corruption inside you grows, so does your power. That power may help you to survive, but there will be a price to pay, and more than any ability, the bonds of trust that you build within your party could be your greatest strength. Caught in a conflict between devils, deities, and sinister otherworldly forces, you will determine the fate of the Forgotten Realms together. All right, so that seems like kind of an interesting thing. Now, as far as how this goes mechanically remains to be seen, but at least on a narrative scale, this is kind of a cool thing to juggle with your character and however you decide to build it, where you have this corruption brewing in the background that who knows? Maybe that might take some control away from you as the player unless you make the absolute ideal choices. Who knows how well you'll be informed on how to on your choice consequences, because sometimes that can be very hit or miss. Or since it is D&D, there's probably a lot left up to dice rolls depending on your stats and bonuses. Now they're boasting next generation RPG forged with the new Divinity 4.0 engine. Baldur's Gate 3 gives you unprecedented freedom to explore, experiment, and interact with a thriving world filled with characters, dangers, and deceit. A grand cinematic narrative brings you closer to your characters than ever before. From shadow cursed forests to the magical caverns of the Underdark. Okay, to the sprawling city of Baldur's Gate itself, your actions define the adventure, but your choices define your legacy. You will be remembered. And it does seem like, I mean, it seems to me like some of the word choice here is just kind of getting a little bloated. Like, your actions define the adventure, but your choices define your legacy. Like, I feel like there's a little too much similarity just in that statement itself, because your actions are based on your choices, which means, one thing is basically the other, right? It just seems a little wordy, like I said. That's just me though. Maybe I'm thinking too much about it. Experience unprecedented breadth and depth. The Forgotten Realms are a vast, detailed, and diverse world, and there are secrets to be discovered all around you. Verticality is a vital part of exploration. Sneak, dip, shove, climb, and jump as you journey from the depths of the Underdark to the glittering rooftops of Baldur's Gate. Every choice you make drives your story forward, each decision leaving your mark on the world. Define your legacy, nurture relationships, and create enemies, and solve problems your way. No two playthroughs will ever be the same. Now, for an RPG, that is a huge thing to boast about your game. Now, I've played a handful of various RPGs. A lot of them are very linear from start to finish, but then there are ones that let you kind of shape your characters, shape your choices a little bit. The Elder Scrolls games are kind of famous for that, where you get dropped into the world and you really do what you want. Although there is an absolute main quest in those games, you can still play as much or as little of that main quest as you want, as you just kind of explore and wander and make your way through the social. But for them to be boasting that here in 2025, hopefully the technology has come long enough where they can live up to that expectation. Let's see. Online multiplayer for up to 4 players allows you to combine your forces in combat and simultaneously attack enemies, or split your party to each follow your own quests and agendas, concoct the perfect plan together, or introduce an element of chaos when your friends least expect it. Relationships are complicated, especially when you've got a parasite in your brain. All right, they are really leaning into the parasite thing for the seriousness and a little bit into the comical effect. So, you if you want to play something off as completely stupid but remain in character, you just blame the brain parasite. Uh, but maybe don't take that approach with your real world jobs because people with brain parasites probably shouldn't be in prominent positions in the real world. Just saying. 7 unique origin heroes offer a handcrafted experience, each with their own unique traits, agenda, and outlook on the world. Their stories intersect with the overarching narrative, and your choices will determine whether those stories end in redemption, salvation, domination, or one of many other outcomes. Play as an origin and enjoy their stories, or recruit them to fight alongside you. Oh, I wonder if that's something like so like you make your character where you have your starting point as the main campaign as if, you're dropping into the DM's game, or with the origin hero if your origin hero is like starting from where they're supposed to exist in the story and you are actively playing that role. If that's how it goes, that could be kind of an interesting thing because they're telling you you have 7 origin heroes. So if they have 7 unique starting points and quest lines based on those origin heroes, that could be a cool thing. Or maybe they just drop the origin hero. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. Based on the D&D 5e rule set, 5th edition, team-based initiative, advantage and disadvantage, and role modifiers join in advanced AI, expanded environmental interactions, and new fluidity in combat that rewards strategy and foresight. Now, I'm just going to assume that AI, as it's written here, isn't referring to the generative AI, but rather the video game AI in learning and adapting the world and the NPCs to the player. That I am going to hope that that is the case of the AI here. 3 difficulty settings allow you to customize the challenge of combat, enable weighted dice to help sway the battle, or play on tactician mode for a hardcore experience. Ooh, now there's an interesting thing depending on how hard you want to make things on yourself. Featuring 31 sub races on top of the 11 races, human, Githyanki, I don't know that one, half orc, dwarf, elf, drow, tiefling, halfling, half elf, gnome, and dragonborn. What the heck is a Githyanki? Okay, I never claimed to be an expert in Dungeons and Dragons. I have very limited experience just listening to a few podcasts. With 46 subclasses branching out of the 12 classes, over 600 spells and actions offer near limitless freedom of interactivity in handcrafted world where exploration is rewarded and player agency defines the journey. Our unique character creator features unprecedented depth of character with reactivity that ensures whomever you are, you will leave a unique legacy behind you all the way up to level 12. Oh, you don't even get to level 20? You just go to 12. Well, I mean, I guess if the campaign got too long, that would be like, or too grindy, that would be a whole problem on its own right. Over 174 hours of cinematics ensure that no matter the choices you make, the cinematic experience follows your journey. Every playthrough, a new cinematic journey. Okay, so there are a great deal of cinematic cutscenes to go through. I mm, I don't know how to feel about that they're boasting 174 hours of that, because when it comes to a game, like a big part of a game when I'm playing is that I want to play the game, but at the same time a game like this, if where the story is a main focus of it, uh having those cinematics to help kind of engross you in the world and narrative and the characters, especially if they're fully voiced and with like music. segments for major story beats. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of this in too much of an old school mindset myself, where, cinematic cutscenes in older games are going to be the same scenes every playthrough. But with 174 hours, there's no way that one single playthrough is going to go through all, you know, 174 hours of cutscenes. There's going to be a lot that you gloss over or miss just because there's probably alternate scenes, scenes for locations that you actually never go through. I just feel like at on one hand, I don't want to be playing a movie, but on the other hand, if it feeds into the world and getting sucked into the story that you're playing, maybe there's a pass in there. I don't know. It just seems weird to think like in games like maybe Road 96, The Last of Us, or what was the other one? Or Life is Strange, I expect cutscenes to take a large chunk of the gameplay time because it's that kind of game where the main focus is the characters and the stories, and you're basically playing short snippets from one story beat to the next. Whereas this, I would almost expect it to be more game, but then the character dialogue and stuff would be a lot of text boxes and reading and going through that. But again, maybe I'm coming from an too much of an old school mindset for this. And chances are I am going to get throttled in the comments down below telling me how absolutely fucking wrong I am and how I'm such an old boomer plebeian for thinking this way about this game. But again, like I'm judging this by the cover. I haven't played it. I'm willing to give it a benefit of the doubt that I absolutely acknowledge that I may have too much of an old way of thinking about this, considering I haven't played this game and probably haven't really played many like it. Romances with complexity and depth. With the looming threat of war heading to Baldur's Gate and a Mind Flayer invasion on the horizon, friendships, though not necessary, are bound to be forged on your journey. What becomes of them is up to you as you enter real, vibrant relationships with those you meet along the way. Each companion has their own moral compass and will react to the choices you make throughout your journey. And at what cost will you stick to your ideals? Will you allow love to shape your actions? The relationships made on the road to Baldur's Gate act as moments of respite at camp as much as they add weight to the many decisions you make on your adventure. Okay, so that's kind of a cool little thing where they are highlighting that even in the downtime, because I know when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons from the player perspective, the downtime and what you do at camp and in town absolutely matters. It's not all about every single dice roll. There are moments of character development and just bantering between the party and the NPCs that feeds into that. And I think, okay, I was just kind of harping about how much I might not like the idea of 140 to 74 hours of cutscenes, but now reading this next section, I think I may have actually done a complete 180 on that, where on one hand, when I'm playing a game, I want to be playing the game. I want to get to the gameplay, the battle, the combat, the looting, the experience. But then again, I have to be reminded that ultimately Baldur's Gate is a Dungeons and Dragons adaptation to video game format, but how much of that Dungeons and Dragons do you like? How much of that can you sacrifice it before it stops feeling like Dungeons and Dragons to the point of the characters and every little interaction between characters, like coming to the point of mattering? Where your interactions matter, including the interactions with the party, be it platonic, romantic, creating rivalries, or turning your party against each other, all sorts of things here. Customize your experience for streaming so that when you hit go live, your stream isn't interrupted by a bear, swear, or lack of underwear. What? Bear, swear, or lack of underwear. Baldur's Gate 3 has three different levels of streamer friendly customization. Okay, anybody that's seen me on Twitch, like you know that it's like, oh wow, absolutely. Like, oh, speaking of Twitch, I my mantike is in the wrong place. I put it up there because I had to block something on the screen. You can disable nudity and explicit content separately or together, and you can enable Twitch integration to interact directly with your audience, just as we do at our Panel from Hell showcases. You'll be able to stream Baldur's Gate 3 without any problems, regardless of how you play, thanks to these options. Oh, now that right there, they know that video game streamers are absolutely a cornerstone of community. And I think that right there might actually be a thing that fed into this whole best community support award that they got. Now, when I first, like I said at the beginning, when I hear best community support, the first thing that comes to mind is modding and how well the game supports a modding community for players to be able to enjoy games in a more diverse way according to their own personal tastes, even if it's just adding items, or like they say in their mod kit, also available on Steam directly for free, by the way. um you can do something as simple as just turn all fireballs neon pink, which is hilarious and silly. And if I were to get this game, I would probably do that just for the novelty. But the fact that they also have this for the streaming community, considering that Twitch does have their content guidelines when it comes to anything rooted in nudity or sexuality, um, I think the general guideline of the rule is that an in-game like an in-game bit small bit of mature content isn't like auto ban, but you can't linger on it. Like, you can't make it the focus of your stream. And doing this, where you can disable those parts of the game for the sake of the stream, is an interesting setting that they have in there. That honestly, that kind of thing could have been done in mods, but the fact that they make it a part of the game itself shows that they want streamers to have access to this, to build communities, and for the players to enjoy this together. So that's kind of a cool thing. A lot of information in there. Like that took so much to get through. Normally I a lot of episodes I would have been wrapping up by now, but we just got there. So we're going to go ahead and move on to part 2 with the screenshots. Now the screenshots, I feel like the screenshots are showing mostly cinematic stuff, but maybe some of this is game. Like, this looks like the kind of thing I would expect to see in a cutscene, where you have what I'm presuming is your player character standing on a rooftop here front and center. But I'm wondering if this might actually be a part of the gameplay thing, since, rooftops and standing, and that is a part of the movement in D&D. So if they make that an actual part of the game that you can play, looking at that kind of vantage point would be kind of cool, if your movement isn't only restricted to street level grids. We do see parts of character creation, that presumably this is character creation with your dragonborn character. Characters out here in the wilderness. Now, again, this does look kind of cutscene-y, but I could see this also being a part of in-game rendering. This one definitely feels like a cutscene, and the character is just straight up holding a they're just straight up holding a dice. I Is that D20? Well, which one has the triangles? Yeah, D20. That's just like an actual in-game artifact, is a D20. We have another scene here. Now, it looks like this. Some of these screenshots, they look like things that would be cinematic cutscenes, but then when we get to the trailers, it looks like this is probably just some camera work of the in-game battles here, where they're staging this. This one looks like it's probably a flyover of a city, getting that vantage point. We get a lot of little shots here with elegant backgrounds, different characters. We see the characters' races and class diversity going on. One of the elven characters, clearly a magic user of some sort. In fact, based on the positioning here, the other character in the background, this makes it look like it's a combat scene, I would guess. We have more shots of more characters. Now, most of the screenshots are these straight up characters, but then we finally get uh after like 10 screenshots in, we have a Dragonborn showing selecting subclass. With we get a whole lineup here: Origin Custom, Race Dragonborn, Subrace Blue Dragonborn, Class Sorcerer with 4 cantrips and 2 spells, Subclass Wild Mage. So you see the subclass, you get a choice of Wild Mage, Draconic Bloodline, or Storm Sorcery. So that's kind of a cool thing, and I'm guessing you'll probably be able to highlight these subclass features to get the descriptions of them. We see the character's stat spread here, the cantrips and spells you selected, bonus or extra actions and proficiencies, daggers, quarterstaff. Which now for people who aren't versed in Dungeons and Dragons, which again I have very limited experience with Dungeons and Dragons. I've read snippets of some tabletop role-playing game rule books, not specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but some games. I've listened to some podcasts of D&D campaigns done by some creators. I haven't actually listened to or watched Critical Role, but back in the day, just as some disclosure, I did listen to dice camera action before there was a little bit of a controversy and fallout with some of the players on that one. I've listened to Team Four Stars at the Table campaign where they were doing a high seas homebrew adventure that was a lot of fun stuff with the characters. So I have an idea of how this stuff works, where you get your proficiencies so that when you have a proficiency, I'm guess from what I understand, you basically add your proficiency bonus to dice rolls that involve those things. So daggers, quarterstaffs, light crossbows. Let's say if you have a +2 proficiency, you would basically roll a dice for a dagger. If it's a melee attack, you roll strength, or you can give agility bonus to something for a finesse weapon plus your proficiency bonus on top of your skill roll. So that's how I understand those. So if you're not as versed in D&D, this can seem very esoteric. Um but if you do know D&D, you'll probably be able to mouse over or even just eyeball this and get an idea of what all is going on. Background acolyte, abilities 27 to 27. So a whole lot of information here shown on this screen, which like I said, if you are well versed in Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to know all about this stuff. If you've played the game ever, you'll have an idea of what's going in. Otherwise, I can see how this might be a lot of information to take in. We have a straight up shot of a full blown combat scene here. I do see characters laid out on the top where they're labeled spectator, characters laid out on the left. I'm guessing that is your active party, if I were to make a guess. We have 3 characters shown here in the line: an end turn button and what looks like a World of Warcraft hotbar, like you would see with a bunch of skills. But then again, they have keyboard designators on them, so you can probably mouse over to click them, or if you know what your hotkeys are, you can just go ahead and tap that as needed. I'm not quite sure if there's a real time component to this or if it is fully turn based. That it did say that there was a real time component to the multiplayer, but for the single player, I'm not as certain on that. We do have a health bar for the boss, which I do find that kind of interesting. I would think that for the sake of immersion, they might have removed health bars from bosses, but maybe at lower difficulty levels. Like if you have a lower difficulty setting, maybe that's where they show you the full health bar because that's conveying information that is it's meta game knowledge, not character knowledge. Like a character should be able to see a target and think, okay, that thing is pretty bloodied right now, but they're not going to show you the outright numbers. That was something that I do recall when I was listening to those podcasts is they will tell you if your opponent is bloodied or in terrible condition, or if after you attack them, if they just kind of like shrug off whatever you did to them, so that you can kind of gauge how much, like you give them the numerical damage, but then you don't get an actual number for the boss's health. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, you get an idea based on looking at them, but you have to go off those visual cues. But you do have a lot of icons, a lot of button interactions, a lot of things that you could probably mouse over to get details. Um, Hopefully it is a turn-based thing because D&D is turn-based, although the turn-based things do still have like their whole thing where the turn is kind of like 6-second segments. We have a situation of I don't care how big the room is, I cast fireball going on, which considering what is presumably the character's health, which I do find it kind of interesting. The health totals are shown instead of like a like if anybody's played the Diablo games, your health is like a full meter in the orb that depletes as your health goes down. This one instead, it's your character portrait and it fills in with red as you take damage, which it's different, but it's not unintuitive. Like you got the idea. The more you're covered in red, the more bloodied you are, the closer you are to getting knocked down. So seeing that here is actually kind of cool. So, Qui-Gon Jinn here is apparently in very bad condition and just decided like, you know what? F this, I cast fireball. We have what? Oh, I can only assume that this is like some huge mind flayer situation with all the tentacles going on over here. So, that's a cool thing. We got a big Bone Daddy dragon over here with a monk character. I'm guessing monk character based on their dress and their attire, and the glowing hands do seem like some kind of a divine monk strike or something, maybe a monk paladin of some sort. I don't know if multi-classing is a thing. I sure hope it is. We have more gorgeous landscapes with the characters lined up here that I really do hope that traversing these landscapes like this is part of the game, that it's not just entirely limited to rote passageways. We have more character close-ups. They do show a lot of character close-ups here. Honestly, I think they might actually show too many character close-ups. Oh, now here, we've gone night. Yeah, they give you a wealth of screenshots to go through. Our last couple of screenshots, well, okay, not that one. So our last screenshot actually is a full-blown inventory menu for the party as a whole. We got Shadowheart, Will, Karlach, and the Dark Urge. I'm guessing they decided to name themselves that to kind of how they're how they're going to play that out, and it shows you basically all the information you can need. You have your health bars on the left here. You have your character information for, all of your move selections, all your skill keys and everything there. Your what looks like main hand and offhand situation going on here because this sword does match the melee weapon. That looks like you can actually just equip multiple weapons to swap between them. But it shows you here what you have for each slot of inventory. And this is something that I wish more games did, was to show you your item screen so that you can see how things are laid out. Now it's not necessarily something that is a requisite for games, but for a game where you're going to be doing a lot of inventory management and menu management, this is the kind of thing you want to know. You want to know it's intuitive. You see that you have your inventory space here, your AC, your armor class. So basically, what an opponent has to roll in order to hit you. Your various equipment slots. You got your amulet, your rings, your underpants. Please tell me that's not an underpants slot. Like that it seriously looks like some briefs going on here. Like, and those look like iron undies, okay? Like, seriously, you have a tunic and shoes there. I can only assume that this across here, that Baldur's Gate, why do you have an underwear equipment slot? Are you actually able to equip enchanted panties in this game? Because if that is what I'm looking at in this screenshot, I have questions, but at the same time, I do know that the characters are able to bang in this game. Just saying. But then you also have your usual equipment slots, helmet, tail, or okay, cape. Like what? cape or shawl kind of situation for that one. Tunic, your armor, your gloves, your arm equipment slot, and your leg equipment slot. So you have equipment slots for everything. You got melee weapons, you got range weapons, you got equipment slots for all of these, so that you can probably quickly swap between them on the fly. So that's a lot of cool stuff. You get a lot of screenshots here. Now, like I did say, a lot of the screenshots are character close-ups. I think they go a little too far with the character close-ups, although it does kind of help to show the level of detail that goes into rendering and modeling their characters. So it's not entirely unwelcome. I just feel like maybe there's a little too much in there. We do get a few good combat shots against some larger than life enemies. We got beholders, we got the fireball going off, we got whatever the Cthulhu is going on here, a whole lot, just all kinds of good things. So with that, that is a lot of trailers and that, or a lot of screenshots. And then on top of those screenshots, that was what, 19 screenshots we went through. And then there's 6 trailers for part 3 of this. Now, the trailers are of their various things. Of course, rated M, because we do have, there are adult situations in here. But like I said, you can turn them off in a streamer mode, so you can probably turn them off and deal with that. One of them is just kind of an accolades trailer where they're showing just some very brief highlights. This seems like the kind of thing that they would have presented at the Game of the Year awards as a kind of like, oh, nominated for this category before, like when they show very short snippets of what's going on. So the accolades trailer, okay, not a whole lot going on. There you get some running characters, you get the landscapes, you get a little bit of the romantic cutscene going on. The other trailers are where we really start to get the meat of it. We have the character doing this whole like Kingdom Hearts falling thing going on here, which presumably is what happens after they get, or maybe before, actually. Okay, it's not detailed the best, but we do know from the game description that you're dealing with a mind flayer larva in your ear. So basically, you are going to go crazy and become one of the mind flayer unless you do something to fix this. They talk about the absolute, which, as we see in the trailers, this one and the other ones, we do get a glimpse of this super powerful, like borderline god tier mage that I can only presume also has something to do with the mind flayer situation going on. Whether he's also infected by them and just leaning into the corruption. Maybe the villain storyline has you teaming up with him or overthrowing him to take control of his throne himself. I don't know. We do get a little bit of romance going on there, a little bit of lovey-dovey stuff in the trailers. And in the trailers we do also get little snippets of what I could only presume as the origin characters. Now, for example, I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. We got this guy holding the hamster. Now, I am not greatly versed in Dungeons and Dragons, but I do know some of the big name characters. I've played what is it? Like idol heroes of the heroes of the idol realm or idol Faerun or whatever it was. I've played a little bit of that. Drizzt appeared in a couple of the campaigns that I've listened to. Like I think the DM on the Dice Camera Action did drop Drizzt into it at some point. And I've also worked with I worked at a game shop at one point handling some game product for Dice Masters, which had some Dungeons and Dragons sets. And that hamster tells me that Minsk is not very far. From what I understand, Minsk is a simple-minded barbarian whose best friend is a little hamster Boo. And the fact that that we get to see Boo here, and in a later trailer, they do have a moment of Minsk ripping his way out of a mimic, in like just from inside of the mimic's mouth, just being like reaching out and just forcing the mimic's mouth open as he like breaks its jaw and crawls out. It's like, okay, Minsk and Boo are in this game, and if that's what they mean by the origin heroes, That would be a cool thing to see those iconic characters in this setting that you can either have join your party or that you can play as directly is just kind of a cool thing. And I would be genuinely thrilled to play as to see like what abilities the hamster gives you, like what kind of things and interactions do you get with the hamster would be absolutely amazing to play through. The fact that we see Minsk and Boo in the trailers is enough to basically sell that point. And then we also get, oh, at the end there, the big Cthulhu face for the Mind Flayer situation going on, because that is the main focus of the story, is that Mind Flayer situation and the absolute dude. The other trailers, we do get more looks at these, more character flashes. Trying to double check to see. We do get what where it looks like you do encounter deity grade characters, and then go into this whole montage of romance characters kissing, going on boats, going skinny dipping, and with complete inclusion as far as a person's, how they want to play it, how they want to go there. And oh, that squirrel just witnessed something heinous. The fact that they have the squirrel drop, like, just bewildered and dropping its nut in the trailer is hilarious. That single moment in the trailer is just an amazing little point of inclusion there that I think is I think absolutely to die for. I love that they have the the foresight to just put something silly in there. One of the trailers here, they do give us, what is this? It's a little bit of an interview trailer of sorts. Did I skip over this one? But they do show us some of the creators here dealing with the kind of thought process that they had in making the game. Something to definitely check out yourself. It gives you their work, their credentials, and all that. We do have the reveal trailer, the release date reveal trailer. So basically, a lot of these back end trailers are the trailers that are showing our big bad here, the one with that power of the absolute that they keep teasing. We do see some of the actual in game play, the character creation screen. We see the dice roll situations going on. We see how the characters move across the field, that it's not entirely grid based, that it does seem to have a little bit of free motion, which honestly, for a game in 2025, I do like the idea that it has the free motion where maybe when you're trying to gauge range, maybe the hard difficulties will have you, they'll force you to eyeball the range to try and see if you can do something. We got all these map situations. They do show some of the simple combat scenes, like the less cinematic, probably more mundane encounters would look like this. And of course, there's also the Game Awards reveal trailer. So the fact that it did get nominated for the Game Awards. So this is going to be a whole thing as well, where they go and talk about, what is it with the Game of the Year awards that they really wanted to highlight. All kinds of cool stuff with that. I think the trailers are definitely worth checking out in their entirety on your own time. Baldur's Gate 3 has them all up on the Steam page there. I'm sure what if there's any other extra console releases, check those out. There's also tons of content out there from creators where they have memed this game to hell and back with all kinds of different kinds of fan creations of all caliber that, quite frankly, I could just go into a whole tirade about those, but we're here to judge the game as it is presented here. The trailers do give us a lot. You get to see the menus. They show us Minsk and Boo. Again, I did mention that Minsk, rips his way out of a mimic. It's right here where they do that. And it is a brutal scene. The kind of thing where it's like, yeah, that is pretty violent. But then again, it's Dungeons and Dragons. You can pretty up Dungeons and Dragons as much as you like, but when you get down to it, it is a game about combat and shit. And holy crap, like seeing him come through that, oof. Vince, you okay, buddy? Anyway, we got to move on. We spent a lot of time talking about screenshots, trailers, and the game description because there is so much to pack there. Even without them making like entire 30-minute like gameplay examples like they did with the Path of Exile 2 store page. But we got to move on to part 4 for the game analysis. The graphics are gorgeous. Now, the graphics do look amazingly good, but no, I would say not so much to the point that you look at it and it's like, okay, it looks like they are trying to pack way too many pixels into every image. They let the models speak for themselves. They the visuals do the job without overblowing it to the point of making me feel like it'll crash a weaker computer. Like it looks like they made something that the textures are there, the characters are vibrant and well defined, but with a kind of I I don't want to say haziness to it, but it doesn't look like the hyper realism that you would see in other games that overly obsess with cramming as many polygons into every character model there is. Um, the characters are still very well rendered. Uh, they do they probably do some work when you zoom out into the larger stuff to go ahead and like res down everything so that you can make sure that it's performing well. That I am hoping at least that is the case because the graphics really do look good. They did say that they had 174 hours of cutscenes, which is an insane amount of like just cinematic to go through to get through all of that. Um, the sound design, now the music and the audio and everything does sound passable. I didn't get a whole lot of chance to, delve into too much with the sound in the trailers. It does sound like it sounds good. It sounds like you get the atmosphere and the themes of the settings and everything. The soundtrack is available if I believe if you get the digital deluxe edition. The gameplay, of course, like I said, it is Dungeons and Dragons. It is very Dungeons and Dragons. From what I understand, it is a very close and faithful representation of Dungeons and Dragons, not only from a mechanical perspective, but from an experience perspective. The way that they utilize the character interactions and everything outside of combat, you know, outside of that, to the point where they put so much focus into character relationships, that being a huge thing that catapulted this game into its popularity, I believe. I feel like the gameplay now, there are probably players that would not be there are probably the kind of players that would not want to be bogged down with all of that romance, all of that cutscene, all of the, character moments, the ones who would prefer to just go through and murder hobo their way through the game, go through the encounters, go through that part of it. But honestly, this might just not be the game for them. I think the way that it's structured, the way that they boast the character interactions and the amount of cinematics, I think in terms that this is a D&D adaptation, what I would typically look at as a bad thing, taking the game out of the game, like the mechanics and everything, if taking that out of the game to focus so much on lore and characters and story and those small moments in between actual mechanical gameplay, I would argue that in this case, that is a huge part of the game. So I feel like when I'm scoring this game, I probably should not use those points against it when it comes to gameplay. The similar way that when I look at games like Life is Strange, where I am pretty certain that the puzzle solving and the gameplay moments are supposed to be like smaller bits to just string together story beats, which are the main focus of it, as opposed to a game like Bayonetta or God of War or Pokemon, where the combat is the more of what I want in the game. Like, give me less cutscene, like, give me enough cutscenes to get the point across, but give me less cutscenes and more gameplay in those cases. In this one, I feel like this one kind of leans into that the other side of things where they're going to have a very in-depth game, but they cannot they can't detract the story beats from it. The UI and the menus. Now, this is a huge point of contention on some games where we, quite frankly, we do not see enough of it on the store page. So, on judging by the cover, we often lose a lot of that. But we do actually get to see quite a bit of that in here. Maybe not the full-blown scope of the menus, but we do see the UI with the battle screens and the buttons all over the screen. They do show us that it's giving you the keybinds on there so that you can see what keys can quickly activate what skills in combat. We saw the item and inventory and equipment screens. What we didn't see a whole lot of is dialogue screens. But considering that there's a lot of cutscene stuff, maybe they do it in the vein of like uh Life is Strange or oh gosh, what was that other one that was in that similar vein that we reviewed? But other games of that sort where the dialogue options are more pick one of these few options on the screen and then the cinematic continues to play out with the responses. Maybe that's how that one goes. We don't see a whole lot of it. It goes mostly into the cinematics. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like we do get a fair amount of UI and menus shown in screenshots and trailers to get us there. Now, with that, the final part of the game analysis, the pricing. At full price, Baldur's Gate 3 is $60, but it is currently, at the time of this recording and episode, on sale for 45. Now, for the amount of game that there is here, and the way they boast their replayability, the way they say that they have over 170 hours of cinematics going into it, that you should never feasibly get through in one single playthrough, considering how many directions the game should logically be able to take. I think that this it like if I was going to pick this game up, I actually would not hesitate to pick this up at its full $60 price tag. And there are very few games that I would say that about. There is also a digital deluxe edition DLC which let's see if we go ahead and pull that here. Um, I'm looking at this off screen. Feel free to check it yourself as well. The screenshot does tell us that there is some stuff here. There is a Divinity item pack, which I believe is a cosmetic item pack. It gives you some extra stuff, some extra skins. Divinity item pack is boasted here, and there's an adventurer's pouch with it. Cape of the Red Prince. Oh, a Mask of the Shapeshifter. They did highlight in the description that there is a practical item, the Mask of the Shapeshifter. Not quite sure what it does, but it has its own screenshots for what the digital deluxe edition includes. Looks like it's actually boasting a loot and some daggers that might be more than just a skin. But you also get digital character sheets with it and the digital art book and the digital soundtrack. So for $10 or on sale for, $7.49, you're getting a good value there. It does give you basically some skins for the game, a couple of practical items that they're talking about in there, which I don't like that the digital deluxe edition is including something in game that might affect gameplay. But then again, it does seem like they're not adding too much to it. Like they're not adding full blown content and chapters to it. It's just a couple of items that you could just play without. Or if you didn't want that, maybe you could actually just get those items from mods. Somebody's probably already made it. The game came out in 2023. It's been over 2 years now that it's been out. I'm sure somebody's made mods for those things. But then the real meat of the digital deluxe edition, $10 for art book, soundtrack, and digital character sheets for those origin characters that you can bring to your actual like tabletop D&D group if people want to try out those characters. That's kind of a cool thing to include in there. Just the art book and the soundtrack alone would have been worth the price of that digital deluxe edition without really missing out on anything. Oh, apparently there's a Bard song pack that has a set of new songs or have them covering their ears if you lack proficiency. So yeah, it does have some mechanical stuff in there, but things that might not be overly game changing. Just some kind of like little bells and whistles. That's maybe the equivalent of starting a game with like an extra batch of potions or something. Again, that I don't like that that's included in there. I feel like that should just kind of be a little thing. But at the very least, it's not like you're missing content of the game the way that you would be with like the Atelier games or the 2 Point games where you have some launch day DLC that feels like it should have just been content included. Um, but the rest of the stuff there they do offer quite a bit. There were pre-order bonuses as well, but that's neither here or there. But personally, like I said, I do think the $60 price tag is extremely fair for this based on the amount of game you get, especially when you factor in that there is that robust modding community. Speaking of robust modding community, there is the Baldur's Gate 3 toolkit data that the developers have put out there for free. So if you are a modder, it is right there for you to jump on and just kind of play around with. The description in there, they do have their own screenshots and descriptions for how those things play out. They've got like their own internal coding language that they made to work with the game for the modders to work with, where you can insert items, modify character behaviors, probably modify storylines, maybe even if some modders have gotten really ambitious and wild in there, maybe some people have made full blown campaigns of it. The way that like the Stardew modding community has added, Ridgeside, East Scarp, Sunbury, things that have added entire separate locations that like more than double the act like the base game itself. So if people have gone that far into the mod, and even if they haven't, the fact that the idea of that is even remotely a possibility, I think is something that is cool and really speaks to how and why this game won best community support, considering that the players and the fans are going to be the reason that the game has that award, but that the players and fans wouldn't have been able to push it were it not for this kind of toolkit given freely by the developers. Like the developers wanted the players to do this, which honestly makes it feel even more Dungeons and Dragons when homebrewing is a huge aspect to not just D&D but tabletop role-playing games as a whole. Having that customizability where the players can do whatever they want. Basically all they have to do is talk with their DM and be like, "Hey, I want to try this. Can we like maybe workshop this into our game or into our campaign somehow?" And it's like, "You know what? It's not in the rule book, but yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do that." The fact that they have a toolkit that lets the players do that in video game form is astounding. And I think tells me that the game absolutely deserved to win that community support award and tells me that $60 for the base game is already worth it. Anything else with mods and the possibility of maybe other players making full blown campaigns or other storylines or alternate or what ifs, alternate universes of the same story just adds to that replayability where you can do so much with just this one single game and that one single purchase, with or without the digital deluxe expansion. With that, I got to get to my rating for this. I am almost an hour into this episode where I feel like I've had my little ups and downs going bit by bit, section by section, just thinking about like what's good, what's bad. Honestly, even if this might not be the game that I would buy up front. Now, if I was if I honestly believed that I would pour the time into this game that it deserves, to play through it, to try out some mods, to play multiple storylines, Like I said, $60 absolutely worth it for me, I think, if I could find myself the time to dedicate to it. For people that do have that time, by all means, jump in there. 25% off is also a great value. That $45 price tag. Get the digital deluxe edition if you like art books and if you like the art book and soundtrack. And honestly, I'm wondering just a game of this size. I gotta wonder how big that soundtrack is. The I don't think the description really said how many tracks are in that soundtrack. Um, but considering that it does seem to not only act as a mechanical, faithful recreation of Dungeons and Dragons, but a thematic one where you really do they promise a huge thing with getting to play the game your way. They do have like the one railroading story for your main character that you have your little earworm going on. But outside of that, you get to do whatever the heck you want in the game. Characters, classes, races, relationships. Maybe maybe you like you could do a whole playthrough of just solo questing, refusing every single party member and see how far you can get with just a single character build. Um it just seems like there's so much to explore there, and I feel like I'm gushing at this one. I don't want to just throw a solid 10 out of 10 out there just because so many other reviews have given this game perfect scores. But honestly, this game, Baldur's Gate 3, I think actually deserves all of those perfect scores that it's gotten based on only what I'm seeing on the store page. Even the things that I look at and I see as things that I might look at negatively in other games, I think might actually really hit home at the point of the game, to the point of they knew what they were creating, they knew what the purpose they set out to do was. I genuinely think that this game has earned its 10 out of 10 ratings, its perfect scores across the board. You can see like up in the trailers, they showcase screens where they show like right there 10 out of 10 by PC Invasion, Power Unlimited. There's probably some players out there who have bought the game and maybe had instant regrets, or maybe some players thought that there was way too much mechanical stuff going on for them to really feel like they figured it out. But at the same time, I'm hoping that the game does present enough. I feel like if I have any criticism, it's probably that the game is very much Dungeons and Dragons, and if you are unfamiliar with Dungeons and Dragons, you might have a hard time getting engrossed into the sheer amount of mechanical diversity and mechanical bloat that there is to it. But I am hoping that at least from what I've seen in the menus, I'm hoping that you can mouse over things. And even if it takes you some time to read the descriptions and everything, and you before you can just start to eyeball things and get an idea of what's going on, I'm hoping that they do give you enough of the descriptions there. That's like the one thing that I think I would criticize here is that it might not be very new user friendly. But as long as they can give you that little bit where if you pay attention to your surroundings, if you read your tooltips, you read your skills, you should be able to figure things out as you go. Even if you don't have the total in depth understanding of the Wizards of the Coast behemoth that has basically been a cornerstone of tabletop gaming and video games. Because let's face it, video games have been adapting even the most rudimentary RPGs are like simple oversimplifications of those tabletop throwbacks to the tabletop games with experience points and stats and how it pans out. They just kind of tweaked how exactly all those engines work. I do think even with that criticism, this game has that perfect 10 out of 10 score for my rating scale. Um Honestly, like I said, that is the only real criticism I think I can throw at it. there were my criticisms earlier where I had concerns about how much cutscene there was to it. Boasting 174 hours of cinematics sounds like a lot, but considering that it is D&D, which is a story and character-driven game between the players and the dungeon master, if they want to adequately recreate that experience into a video game, I feel like the cinematics and the downtime, like the camping and the interpersonal character relationships, is a part of that experience. It's not all about the dice rolls and everything. It's the characters and how they get along and how they intermingle, and they really do a number to really highlight that. Now, of course, like I said, I have not played this game. I haven't bought this game. I don't think I am going to buy it, but that is not a criticism against the game itself. That is a testament of the game having so much to it that I don't think I could sit down and give it enough time to warrant that 45 or that $60 price tag. But it is the kind of game where if I get the time and the dedication to go into it, I would be absolutely willing to pay that $60 price tag, not even waiting for a sale, if that opportunity came up in my life. Now, maybe at some point in the future that'll come up. I honestly I kind of doubt it just because I know how my life goes and how I kind of keep busy with other projects. Anybody that's been following on this channel or on Twitch knows sometimes I have to take a little hiatus. That's why I try to schedule videos so far ahead of time to have series going as long as I can so that I can focus on the other projects like this show, this Judging by the Cover show. Of course, these are all opinions. These are my opinions. I do understand that everyone's got their different tastes when it comes to the entertainment media. If anybody has their own input, please drop your comments down below. I welcome the input. I welcome the discourse. If I do check and reply to somebody, I want people to know that I don't want it to be taken as being argumentative if there is something I disagree about, or if I have like something that I expand on. I don't mean it in an argumentative way. Um, I welcome differing opinions. I welcome correction. If I got anything wrong, by all means, call me out, blast me down there in the comments. Uh, I'll take it in lightheartedness. And for those of you who have purchased and played the game, like let us know your thoughts too. And before I go ahead and wrap up here, I would just like to say thank you, everybody that has tuned in for this year of Judging by the Cover. I have had an amazing time doing this series, both with co-hosts and solo, like doing some of these alone. That I feel like I've had the chance to look at a whole bunch of different games, and I am ecstatic to be continuing this series into 2026 as we move on into January. I'd like to thank everybody for a great 2025. I feel like this has been a good step for both Twitch and YouTube for me, even though, you know, I am a very small time channel and all that. Again, I appreciate everyone that's been out there watching these videos. And if you made it this far in the video, like pat yourselves on the back for listening to me ramble and gush and read and just go off about, you know, games that I haven't even played, games that I've barely looked at. Because let's face it, like I've seen some of the memes, I've seen some of the little clips on TikTok and YouTube that people have done, but I have not watched Let's Plays of these. I have bought some of the games that I've reviewed on this after reviewing, of course. Um, and honestly, I think that the games that we've looked at have been an amazingly interesting experience. Just to look at these from a consumer perspective and to look at them as potential buyers, you know, to be reviewing the store and how they present themselves. I do look forward to 2026 with you guys again. So let us look forward to January and be sure to check us out on Sunday when we start the month of early access games. Yeah, I started with brand new games that were new releases in 2025. But for 2026, we're going to start by looking at early access games, games that are incomplete, games that honestly might never be completed. But I gotta say, you guys have been absolute pals through all of this.